What's going on, everybody? This situation isn't getting a whole lot of airtime right now because of the Jussie Smollett thing and everyone wanting to talk about Kamala Harris and her gaffes. But yeah, this is something that needs to be talked about a little bit. It's got a couple issues with it, and so let's just get down to it. A Coast Guard lieutenant and self-described white nationalist who was arrested in Maryland last week was plotting to kill a long list of prominent journalists and Democratic politicians, as well as professors, judges, and what he called leftists in general. Lieutenant Christopher Paul Hanson, 49, was arrested Friday on gun and drug charges, but prosecutors said in the filing that those charges were just the proverbial tip of the iceberg. The filing argued that Lieutenant Hasson, I keep saying Hanson, sorry, should be held until he is tried, describing him as a domestic terrorist who intended to murder innocent civilians on a scale rarely seen in the country. At a hearing on Thursday, today, Magistrate Judge Charles B. Day ordered that the lieutenant remain in federal custody for at least the next 14 days. That's not that long. That's 2 weeks. It's not that big. I mean, this guy's got issues, definitely. A lot of issues. And he very well may be a danger to the public. But, okay. Hasson works as an acquisition officer for the Coast Guard headquarters in Washington. He wrote, and it was on his computer, his work computer, I believe, "I'm dreaming of a way to kill almost every last person on Earth. I think a plague would be the most successful, but how do I acquire the needed Spanish flu, botulism, anthrax? Not sure yet, but I'll find something." Yeah, guy's a little bit off his rocker, I'd say. Yeah, he had pretty much a hit list, and that list included people like Nancy Pelosi, Alexandria Cortez, Maxine Waters, Richard Blumenthal, and a bunch of people from CNN, and a bunch of the senators that are running for president in 2020. Oh boy, this guy's a piece of work, you know. See, these are the real people that we need to be looking at. Not like the Smollett story where he makes something up just to try to get... So, he did it because he wanted more money, apparently. He wasn't getting paid enough, and he thought this would give him some right to get paid more. I don't know how that works. But this he's pretty crazy. In a letter quoted by prosecutors, Lieutenant Hasson wrote about wanting to start a race war and pondered the best way to do it. In a quote, he said, "Much blood will have to be spilled to get Whitey off the couch." Well, I hate to tell this guy, I'm not going to participate in no race war. I think racism's retarded. It's kind of stupid. He mused about taking advantage of some already tense issue, like the standoff in Oregon in 2016 between protesters and the Bureau of Land Management. "Please," this is a quote, "please send me your violence that I may unleash it unto their heads. Guide my hate to make a lasting impression on this world." He said that in a letter. I guess, presumably, to some of the people that were doing this protest. And with that stated, I am so glad they pulled this guy off the streets, because he wanted to take advantage of an already tense situation. The Jussie Smollett issue, to me, it was kind of a tense situation between races, you know. Jussie Smollett was accusing white MAGA people of attacking him, and this guy, you know, he's obviously got quite a few screws loose and has been relatively under the radar. So I think this might be one of the reasons why they picked him up now, because this was an issue that could have, you know, threw him into some kind of action that he saw. But yeah, he was arrested on weapons and drug charges, but declined. Yeah, he was arrested on weapons and drug charges. Because this is an open investigation, the Coast Guard had no further details at the time. He's represented by a public defender, Julie Stelzig. That's kind of funny, being that he's that. It sounds like a Jewish last name, and he's a neo-Nazi. If that's true, that's hilarious to me. I wonder how he feels about that. I bet you he ain't hating on her right now. That's for sure. Miss Delzig called for a filing by prosecutors, a histrionic characterization of Mr. Hasson, and an extraordinary document that relied mainly on circumstantial evidence and speculation about his plans. We are not yet a country that detains people for their internet searches or deleted documents, Miss Delzig said. Yeah, but he did say some pretty horrific things. The sheer number and force of the weapons that were recovered from Mr. Hasson's residence in this case, coupled with the disturbing nature of his writings, appeared to reflect a very significant threat to the safety of our community, particularly given the position of trust that Mr. Hasson held, said Robert K. Hura, the United States Attorney for the District of Maryland. Yeah, I'd say this guy, he's definitely a screwball. He's definitely got something wrong with his brain. To be thinking, to write down anything on your work computer that's as crazy as some of the stuff he was saying, yeah, he's obviously not right in the head. The judge, Judge Day, denied the defense request for release, but said that in light of the lieutenant's long military service and lack of previous criminal record, he would be willing to reconsider the matter in 2 weeks if prosecutors have not filed any additional charges by then. So the judge himself said that he's gonna have to probably let him out on bond or something. But they're trying to get him with a felony firearms charge. I don't know where they're getting that. He must have, you're allowed to have as many firearms as you want. So I don't know where the firearm charge is coming in. I understand the misdemeanor drug charge because he had a whole bunch of tramadol and stuff like that in his possession. So if he didn't have a prescription for it or something, they could get him on that. But the gun thing, they're going to have to end up clearing that up a little bit, because I don't see anything indicating why he would have a gun charge. Just because he's amassed a bunch of weapons, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. Anybody can do that. It's not that big of a deal. I know a lot of people that have arsenals for recreation and hunting. They just like to shoot. To me, that's not that big of a deal. But yeah, here's some wild stuff. Shortly after the violence incited by a white supremacist rally, unfortunately in my home state of Charlottesville, Virginia, in 2017, the authorities say Lieutenant Hasson drafted a letter to a well-known neo-Nazi expressing support for the idea of building a white homeland in the Pacific Northwest. And this is a quote, "I never saw a reason for mass protest or wearing uniforms, marching around provoking people with swastikas, etc. I was and am a man of action. You cannot change minds protesting like that. However, you can make change with a little focused violence." Guy's crazy. Yeah, he also wrote in a passage, "I am a long-time white nationalist, having been a skinhead 30 plus years before my time in the military service." You would think that someone would have got on to him a little bit quicker. He says he's been a neo-Nazi for over 30 years, and stuff like this is just coming to light. And he was putting stuff on his work computer at the Coast Guard, like, national office. So you would have thought that this would have been nipped in the bud a long time ago. But yeah, that's a crazy situation brewing here. We need to know what that gun charge is, what that felony firearm charge is, because it seems as if he purchased all of his stuff legally. So I'm not quite sure what the firearm charge is. I don't get that part. But yeah, this is an insane story. This guy's obviously off his rocker a little bit. You know, I'm a conservative and all that, and I do not like leftists, and I don't like most modern Democrats, these neo-Democrats, if you want to call them that, but far leftists and all that, but never would I want to bring any harm to them. You know, this guy wanted to kill him. He wanted to assassinate people. Like I said, he's obviously deranged. He obviously needs a lot of counseling. And yeah, we're just going to have to see how this story progresses, because as it sounds right now, he could be let out in 2 weeks. And I'm sure he'll be monitored heavily when he's let out. But still, this is an interesting case, and it's still unraveling, so we'll have to see where this goes. I'm just glad, I mean, everyone should be glad they found this guy, because these are the type of people that actually cause problems. You know, these are the type of people, you know, Antifa and all these leftist organizations always go after just people wearing MAGA hats and whatnot, going to work and or going out to get something to eat, walking down the street. I guarantee you Antifa ain't trying to mess with people like this, and these are the people that should be messed with, that should be brought out to light, you know. That's the problem with Antifa. They only go after people they know aren't going to do anything, generally. And when they go after groups that would do something, they usually end up having to retreat because things get nasty. And Antifa people can't fight. But yeah, so we're going to follow this. And to me, this is just a thing, a little rant. To me, it's funny that Nazis like this guy and whatnot, because he's a self-proclaimed neo-Nazi skinhead and all this, why are they considered far right? When did we on the right have to take, like, why did they have to get classified as far right? To me, they should be really far left, because they're generally socialist. What is a Nazi? What does Nazi stand for? It stood for the National Socialist German Workers' Party. That's a leftist ideology. So how did Nazis and neo-Nazis end up on the right? I don't understand that quite. I've been trying to wrap my head around that for a long time. The more I study everything, it's odd. But yeah, this story's unfolding, and I'm gonna stick with it because this is way more important than any of that Smollett stuff or anything else that's going on right now. This guy did have an arsenal that he had like rifles that were set up for sniping. He wrote down in certain things that he wanted to snipe people and possibly plant bombs places. Yeah, he's kind of crazy. He's not kind of crazy. He's batshit crazy. This guy was off, definitely. And he worked in such a high priority place. It's crazy that this is just coming out. But, yeah. I'm going to keep y'all posted with everything I can find on this case. And as always, like, share, and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all on the flip side.